This is a voiceover over of day 4. In the beginning, I'm just setting up, but question 1, I start with variable name, just like q1 underscore, and then the variable number they would be, but I decide that's way too complicated and congest it later. But first problem is just combining 4 strings into one, and then I print it out to debug it. Question 2 is very similar. Instead of 4 strings, it's 3. So combining those 3, printing them out, no issue. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead. And question 3, declare a variable named company and assign it to an initial value coding for all. This was easy. I printed and debugged it at the same time, or printed and assigned it at the same time. Print the variable name, print the variable company name. I should have combined that with question 3, but I'm lacking. Question 5, print the length of the company using length and print, which is no issue. I combined it with 6 and 7 using the upper and lower method, but very quick ones done already, and that only took me 10 minutes in real time. Let's see, 8, use capitalized title swap case to format the string. I had never done that before, so I take a minute to find the correct functions to use, and then I realized it's a lot easier than I thought. I just did all 3, and then proceed to question 9. Question 9, cut slice out of the first word of coding for all string. This is very easy, but again, I'd never done it before, so I had to quickly go through the walkthrough, I would call it. The quick documentation it's given, and it asks to replace the coding with Python, which is easy as pie. You can just use the .replace function on the string. We can do a very similar thing with question 11, and question 12, I believe, is just the same. I'm realizing I skipped question 10. Question 10, find if it contains the word coding, which can be done with index. It will return the position of the value. Index specifically will throw an error if it does not find the word, compared to find, which will instead throw a -1. So in reality, I should have used find, but it told me to use index. Never mind, it told me I can use anything. 14 was annoying. It just asked for a long string, and I wanted all the strings, not all the strings, but all the code to fit vertically in that slice and not leak out that much. But thankfully, you can just plus equals. Formatting strings is something I already knew, but there were some things that I was learning on the way. For example, I never used it this video, but you can use a string and then a %sign and then a tuple to format it instead of using f string and then having the variables or the values inside of the curly brackets. And then on top of that, you can also use string.format, which will allow you to just have multiple values inside the string be the same value quicker. Question 18, I struggled a bit because I read question 19 ahead of time, and I knew that they were basically the same thing. So I knew I wanted to make it a function. I wrote it out first and then compressed it into a function, making it easy to do both at the same time. Question 21, 20, 21, and 22 required very simple things, finding capital C, capital F, and capital A. So I could just copy and paste them. I probably should have used a function, but too late. They were just one sentence, one line things anyways, so it probably didn't matter. Question 23 requires me to find the beginning index of because in a long statement, and 24, 25 I believe as well. 26, 27, they all require me to interact with the long statement, the long string. Index to find the first area, index of the because, and our index helps me find the last one. I had to add the length to the last one so that way I could get. I had to get the length of because to add it to the index of the last because so that way I could get all three becauses rather than the first two. I got kind of confused on 26 and 27 because they look like repeats of 23 and 25. Really weird, not a problem. Question 28 and 29 are similar, so I copied and pasted it. Probably should have made a function as well for that one, especially because it's a lot longer, but I don't have an issue. And they both fit in the thing anyway, so it's fine. 30 and 31, 32. 30 was probably the easiest. Never mind, 30 was the hardest. I ended up finding the location. I forgot what I did the first attempt, but I did it over and I found the index for the first letter being C. And then I made it so that way temp would equal the first index of C to the very end of the string. And then to remove the spaces at the end, I would make it so that way it would equal 0, index 0 of the string to index up to the L. So that way all the spaces after wouldn't be counted. 31 and 31 was the easiest, in my opinion, outside of assigning variables. 32 was the exact same as 31, just with a different string. 33 was a print statement, just trying to get you used to \n and \t for 34. 35, I like this question. There are a lot of ways to go about 35 since it's so open, but I ended up going arguably the worst route at the start, and I went an even worse route during the cleanup section. But I like it. It works. It's okay. It's not clean. Um, Definitely ways to make it better. 36. I had the most trouble with this one because I didn't know how I wanted to do it. I wrote it three different ways. Okay, 36 in particular, you could either manually write out plus 8 plus 6 equals and then like have the math automatically calculated. I don't know how I wanted this one, so I started with the way I had it there, which was terrible. But then I decided 8 and 6 are always consistent, so why even have A and B? And then the only things that change are the symbol and the answer. So I decided to make a function to make it easier. Oh my god, that's something I didn't even see, but I'm referring to 8 divided by 6 in that section. I had it I had it transformed into a string and then got the first two, um, what are they called? First two items in the string. So that way it wouldn't like be super long and it would be exactly like the example 1.33. But 1.33 is at 0 to 5, not 0 to 2. But luckily, it doesn't matter. I mostly fixed it by getting rid of it altogether. So there's no issue with it. But at this point, I'm just cleaning up some final touches to everything, making sure everything's like, not even everything. A good example is right here. Question one, rather than assign a variable to 30 days of Python, I just combine it into a string. The question never asked to assign them to a string and then combine the strings that were assigned. It just asked for you to combine strings, not variables, strings. Very common misconception. Strings are not inherently variables. Kinda? You you can assign a variable. You can assign a string to a variable, but you can't assign a variable to a string without a dictionary. Question 35 cleanup was super nice in my opinion. Cleaned it up very well. I probably could have cleaned it up better, but no problem with it. Question 36 cleanup the second time. This time I just condensed it since I had a lot more space to work with. Rather than making the function print, I returned a string that could be printed afterwards. So that way you could print two in one line. And while printing in two in one line, I just backslashed n to separate them. So that way they would be in different lines, but also using less line space. Also, any bugs I found with the code, I would fix. A very big one was CFA. CFA was supposed to be like coding for all, but just like completely strict, completely like unable to be messed with. And I did it wrong. Same thing with Python for everyone. Uh, the F was uncapitalized, and it was just a mess. And then that's when I realized that question 30 didn't even work, which is why I rewrote it to how I explained it earlier when I was talking about it. Yeah, as you can see, I removed the prefix by getting the start of the string up until the last character, which is L. And I do a very similar thing to get rid of the spaces in front of the words. Starting off by making the string start at the first letter, ending at the end of the string. At this point, I just started messing around. I wanted to print yippee like a lot of times in the terminal, and I forgot that I could just multiply strings by numbers to make them very much longer. So that's what I ended up doing.